Oh yes, friends, oh yes! It's the most wonderful time of the year yet again! Metal Month! Does it get any cooler than that? Throughout the month of November, I partner with Toontrack on a bunch of awesome videos for you, starting with this one. This video is sponsored by Toontrack, and today I'm gonna show you how to spice up your metal tracks by creating some unique metal drum grooves. All the sounds that you're gonna be hearing are from EZdrummer 3. EZdrummer 3 comes with a massive library of grooves and fills for a wide range of genres. So you can drag and drop right into the song creator and use the edit play style button to change a bunch of different things about, including the power hand, which you can drag and drop onto any instrument and it will automatically change what's happening in the groove. And then of course you can always change the groove to fit your song better using the very powerful grid editor. I'm using the Will Putney Modern Metal expansion. There are 3 basic elements to any drum part: the kick, the snare, and then the power hand, which could be like the hi-hat or the ride or a crash or a china. It's basically the thing that keeps time. There are a lot of things that the kick and snare do, but their #1 most important basic function is to give you the backbeat. It gives the power to the groove. In metal, it shows you where to bang your head. In this video, I'm only gonna be working in 4/4, but you can apply any of these principles to any type of groove, any style of music, and any time signature. In any given basic measure of 4/4 time, we have 4 quarter notes to fill. We can subdivide that into 8/8 notes, 16/16 notes, and so on. But the #1 thing that differentiates different types of grooves from each other is where the snare sits within the measure. Above all else, this determines the general feel of the part. I'll show you what I mean by that. You can keep the power hand and the kick drum doing the exact same thing and just move where the snare sits and completely change the feel of it, right? Watch this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So as you can see, very important where the snare goes. Kind of dictates how you move your body with the music, you know what I mean? Something really big and long and slow isn't going to feel the same as a blast beat, for example. Those are just a couple of incredibly basic and common examples of where you can put the snare to change the feel of the part. But what if you want something that's a little bit more unique? I know that you do because you write unique music and you need unique drum grooves to go with it. So, what do we do to change it up from the norm, from the basic beats? Let's start with something ultra basic. So what we have here is a pretty straightforward 4 on the floor type of rock drum beat. The kick is on 1 and 3, the snare is on 2 and 4, and the hi-hat is playing all of the 8th notes. Right out of the gate, without adding anything, with the first thing to do to make something like this more interesting is to offset something. Offsetting it just means that we're gonna take any one of these notes and we're gonna move it backwards or forwards in time. Right now I've got the grid set up on 8th notes, so we're gonna take one of these snare drums and I'm gonna delay it a little bit. Here's what that sounds like. Bit more interesting, right? So obviously this changes the feel of the part a bit. You were expecting to feel that snare drum on the 4, on the 4th beat, and now it's on the and of 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We've thrown the listener for a little bit of a loop. Now let's try doing the same thing, but moving it in the other direction. So here's where it was on 4 before. Now let's try moving it to the and of 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let's reset the snare drum back to where it was, back to basic. Now let's try the same thing with the kick drum instead. I'm gonna grab this second kick drum hit and I'm gonna move it from the 3 to the and of 3. Hear how that sounds. And then if I move it in the other direction to the and of 2, it sounds like this. For all of these, I'm gonna show you what it feels like over the course of 2 measures, twice through the same idea, just so that you can kind of feel it a bit better. So now I've offset the kick drum. I'm also gonna try offsetting the snare. Let's try moving it to the and of 3. Let's hear what it sounds like with the combination of those two. That's pretty cool. Now let's try offsetting the snare in the other direction. And then taking that kick that we offset before, put it going the other way. Since we have a 2-measure phrase here where we've got the same thing twice, what if we swapped them around so they're in opposite places, right? So that the kick will be offset in one direction in the first measure and then the other direction in the second measure. I like working with 2-measure phrases for loops because if you only have the one, it gets real repetitive sounding real fast. You can, of course, expand it even further than that to create a phrase that is longer than that, which is generally more interesting and feels less like a loop, but for right now, we're just gonna stick to 2. We've already created so much interest just by moving some of the hits that were already there. We haven't even added any more notes to the part yet. I've got it set to a really slow tempo right now, just so that you can really understand what's going on. I'm gonna crank it up a little bit right now, just so that you can feel a bit more what it would be like at a proper metal tempo. It's obviously much cooler at a high tempo, right? Also, I feel like it flows a bit better at a high tempo. Metal, 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 metal. Metal, 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 metal. So far, all we've done is offset one hit of each element per measure. I'm gonna try grabbing all of the snare drum hits and offsetting them by 1 beat. Ooh, that's pretty sick, actually. Right now, what we're doing is basically sandboxing. We're trying different things. Eventually, you're gonna hear something that you like, and then you're gonna grab that idea and you're gonna keep it and you're gonna actually use it. I'm going about generating these ideas in a sort of procedural, analytical way. But when you're listening back to see if it's any good, you have to just see what feels right. You don't think about it like this when you're actually deciding what's gonna go in your song or not. This is something that I cover at length in my songwriting course. Anytime you're feeling uninspired, or maybe like the ideas that you've been using for certain things are a bit stale, or you tend to use the same go-to couple of things, I like to use this sort of technique just to generate some new ideas and inspiration. Because honestly, it's kind of hard to think of new ideas when you don't try some wild stuff. So what we've got so far is like a pretty cool groove, right? It's just not really all that, metal. So now we enter the next phase. We're actually gonna add some stuff, and you probably guessed what the first thing is that I'm gonna add. More kick drum. We're gonna make our little digital drummer do some fancy footwork. All I'm gonna do right now is make straight 8th note kick drums. This is not interesting. Let's actually subdivide the kick even further from 8th notes to 16th notes. That's metal, but it's also a little bit boring. And today what we're going for is unique, spicy, exciting. So I'm actually gonna go back to the groove without all the double bass, but I'm gonna keep the subdivisions. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take each of these kick drum parts and I'm gonna turn each single hit into a double hit. This probably is not gonna sound that cool. Unless it does. This is the point at which I would sort of stop sandboxing, to be honest. Because now I'm starting to hear things that I actually want it to do, because that sounds kind of cool, but it also sounds a little bit ridiculous. There's like weird emptiness happening in different parts of the beat that I don't really like. I'm gonna add in a couple more kick drums. I'm just kind of feeling where they should go. One super important thing to do, if you think what you've got is cool, don't just listen to it once and be like, yeah, it's cool. Put it on a loop. Right now our power hand is a little bit lame. It's a little boring. It's doing the same. So far we haven't touched it at all. It's just doing the same sort of basic keeping time 8th note pattern. Realistically, once the tempo passes a certain threshold, the drummer is not going to be doubling up the power hand anymore. Also, sometimes it just sounds really lame to be doing. So for right now, I'm actually gonna cut out about half of these power hand hits. I'm also gonna swap out the power hand cymbal from a hi-hat to a stack. I really like stacks, I don't know. So let's try that out. So now we've got something that kind of sounds like something, right? This is now fewer notes. So if we wanna spice it up a little bit further, what we can do is add some of them back in strategic spots. What I like to do is take a look at where there's some empty space and sort of fill it a little bit. For example, right here in the 4th beat of our first measure, the stack is the only thing that's going on here. So maybe we could double it up there and see how that sounds. Maybe we split that one again. That feels like it might be kind of hard to play. You gotta be very wary of the octopus. It can creep in when you're programming drum parts. The octopus is when you program something that a human being cannot play. An octopus could play it because they've got 8 arms, but a human being only has 4 limbs. You can, of course, program anything and EZdrummer is gonna play it back for you, but that doesn't mean that a person can actually do it. So if what you want is realism, especially if you're writing a part for a real drummer to play, you gotta beware the octopus. More than anything else, that just didn't sound as cool as I thought it was going to. Let's try just subdividing this one hit and see if that's cool. I kind of want one right here. That kind of just feels right. Or maybe this wants to be a snare. Anybody else feeling a snare? Well, it's definitely unique. I don't actually know yet if this is good. It's the seed of an idea that could eventually become something that is really, really awesome. Right now, it's not actually very groovy of a groove because it's completely slammed to the grid. Everything is 127 velocity. It's not particularly pleasant to listen to. I'm gonna try and make this a bit more metal. I'm gonna add some more double bass, which feels a little bit gratuitous, but at the same time, this feels a bit sparse to me right now. So I'm gonna try, yeah. Listen to it a couple times through to hear it. That's pretty cool. You know, I was kind of hot on the stack. I kind of feel like for this part, it's not really working as well as I'd hoped. So I'm gonna move the power hand to a crash sound. To me, this is a really easy way to generate a bunch of interesting ideas for you to work off of. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna add some guitar to it, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of easy bass and see what I can come up with just based on this groove that we discovered. Really, this is just one very important part of creating drum parts for your songs. Right now, this is very raw. From here, there's all kinds of things that you're gonna do to make it sound and feel much better and more realistic. You're gonna add lots of things that a real drummer would do, like fills and ghost notes and proper velocities that aren't all 127. But we've generated the raw core idea that could be the basis for a whole composition, or at least a part of a song. And you can apply this same process over and over and over again, and every time you're gonna come up with something completely different and something completely unique. So to review what we did, we started with something ultra basic. We offset some of the elements in time. We subdivided them differently, we added some notes, and then we kind of just went ham and tried a bunch of different things, moving things around, adding notes, and then you take what you've got and you develop it out further and further until you've got a whole song. And if you want to learn more about how to take an idea like that and develop it into a complete song, I have a whole course that's just about that. It's called Complete Rock and Metal Songwriting. There's a link in the description where you can find out more about that. Huge thanks to TuneTrack for sponsoring this video. I love everything that they make. I use it all the time. It is very easy for me to say nice things about it because it's amazing. And you can find out everything that I used at the link in the description below as well. And stay tuned, because I got more videos coming at you, all Metal Month long. And I'll see you real soon.